Is it possible to take a regular electric guitar and make it sound like a bass guitar in GarageBand? We're about to find out. Let's go. Hi, my name is Pete and this is Studio Live Today, where I help you create, record and release your best music. And something a little bit fun today. I heard about this from Seth over on the GarageBand Users Facebook group, and he mentioned that if you've got just a regular electric guitar and you want to make it sound more like a bass guitar, you can pitch shift it down one octave. It sounds like a pretty simple process, but the question is, in GarageBand iOS, can we use the vocal transformer, the built-in plugin, to actually achieve that? So I'm going to give this a go. We're going to hook up my guitar to my interface and see if we can get this sounding more like a bass guitar. Let's jump in and take a look now. Okay, a very quick look at the setup that I'll be using for this recording. I'm using my Steinberg UR12 interface, but you can use any guitar interface, an iRig, any sort of USB interface that you like. And what I'm going to do is grab a guitar cable and plug one end into the instrument jack there. The other end, not surprisingly, is going to go into my guitar, like so. So that's connected there, and then I'm just going to grab my headphones, my Sennheiser HD280s, and plug those in to the headphone jack so I can monitor. I've got a power supply here, just a portable battery power bank that is powering all of this up, and of course I've got my lightning to USB connector, which you can't see at the moment because it's up here, connected to my phone that's recording this video. So we're ready to go now. We're going to jump over now into GarageBand, and I'm going to start testing if we can record this guitar. Yes, here we are back in GarageBand where we belong. Now here's a track I prepared earlier. This is one that I was working on a previous video, and a quick funny backstory. My mum listened to this in the video and said, that sounds just like a song and I can't put my finger on it. And I'm like, no, it's just a jam, just a few chords I was jamming on. I listened back to it, went, oh yeah, of course it is this song. So I will reveal what song it is at the end, and you may go, oh yeah, I know that song, mostly if you're Australian. But let's just play this back now and you can hear what the track sounds like so far. Okay, so some of you are probably going, yes, I know that song, and most of you are going, no, I don't. Anyway, let us now, what we're going to do is add a bass part. So as you can see, we've just got drums here, we've got a rhythm guitar, which is this one here, and then we've got a lead guitar. So what we're going to do is add a third guitar. We're going to tap on the plus down here. We're going to go to our amp. Now, here's sort of phase one. We're going to use a bass amp to help our guitar sound a bit bassier. Says that yes, an audio device is connected, a device. We're going to turn on monitoring and then quickly turn it off because we're going to hear my voice monitored. So I will turn that back on in a moment, but what we actually need to do is change this to input 2. So this is our guitar input, and now we can actually turn our monitor back on, and yes, we can start playing a song. So that is good to go. So at the moment, our guitar doesn't sound much like a bass. So that's with a pick, and even if I use my thumb, it's not too bad. Like, it's obviously a high bass, so you could get away with this, especially if we use a different bass amp. So if we go with, say, something like the modern amp, or we could go with the flip top. So if you were playing a high bass part, you could get away with just playing it like that, yeah, and you'd still get a decent sort of sound. But what we're going to actually try here is the tip that we got from Seth, which is using the vocal transformer. Now, one thing he did say is that latency can be quite bad with this particular effect. So let's try this out now. We're going to tap on our little mixer icon here. We're going to come into plugins and EQ, tap on edit, and then hit the plus button and come down to vocal transformer. So at the moment, it's got nothing applied to it, but yeah, I can really hear. So there is about, you might be able to just hear it in the microphone, but when I twang, you can hear that there's about a half a second maybe delay. So this is going to be too much latency to play. So what we're going to have to do is, instead of having the vocal oh, by the way, let's actually just do what we're supposed to do. So if we take the pitch down 12 semitones, which is an octave, So that's what we're actually looking to do here, is to change the pitch down. So we'll do that, but we'll do that in a moment. Let's turn that back off now so that, yeah, I'm back to almost no latency now, so I can actually play along with this part. So that is how we're going to set ourselves up. Now, the other thing that I'll do here is we're going to adjust the bass sound here. So what I'll probably do is drive the bass up a little bit here on the actual amp itself, drive the treble down a little bit, and maybe drop our mids down a little bit too, just so that we're getting a little bit more bass sound through than we would, because we're not using a bass guitar, which has got thicker strings and is going to naturally have a lot more bass. So we're set up here now. What I'll do is let's hit record and record a bass part for this track, and then we'll see if we can use this vocal transformer to drop it down an octave and see what it sounds like. Alright, now I'm going to drop the volume of our other instruments down a little bit and pump the bass up here, just on the output, just so that you're going to be able to hear the bass as I play. And what I've also done is I've dropped my bass down, well, my guitar down into drop D, which means the bottom string's actually going to be a D. Because this song is in the key of D, it's just going to mean I get a slightly lower note and a little bit more of a bassy sound. So let's now hit record and record a bass part on this track. Okay, so let's turn the monitor off on that one. That wasn't the best recorded bass part in the world, but we're not really here to listen to my bass playing skills or lack thereof. We want to see if we can make it sound more like a bass guitar. Let's just play it back as it is. So despite the slightly poor play, you can hear there that if we wanted it to be at that level, it's actually okay. So without dropping it an octave, without doing anything else, just using the bass amp and adding in that extra bass sound and doing it in drop D tuning has actually already made it sound pretty good. So let's now try this little trick. We'll come in here to the mixer, we'll go to our plugins, let's turn back on this vocal transformer, and now let's hit play and see what it sounds like now. Yeah, so there is our problem. You can hear the vocal transformer adds in a little bit of imperfection, a bit of distortion, a few little artifacts in there, which makes the sound, at least when it's soloed, it sounds a little bit weird, because all it's really doing is actually sort of stretching out that sample, and it's the way it does the time shifting. There are better pitch shifting plugins, but the default one here that everyone has for free, the vocal transformer, doesn't do an amazing job, especially when you're going lower. However, if we bring this back into our mix now, it may actually sound okay. So let's play through now, and I'll play this bass part with the rest of our song, and we'll see what it sounds like in our mix. Okay, so, you know, not terrible. I don't hate this method. I think if in a pinch, especially in a rock song where the bass just sort of needs to sit underneath and be the engine room, I think this is absolutely a viable option. And you know what? I would probably even just leave it off, and we've already got a pretty good bass sound. So I think using the bass amp, increasing the bass, and making sure that your guitar's set up right to be as bassy as possible, you can get a decent bass guitar sound. So if you don't have a bass guitar or you don't know how to play a bass guitar, then using your regular electric guitar seems like a pretty viable option to be able to record a bass sound. Now, I did mention that this song sounded a bit like another song, so before we finish up here, let me just add the vocal line to this track, and we'll see if some of you may recognize this Australian classic. Horror movie right there on my TV. Horror movie right there on my TV. Horror movie right there on my TV. Shocking me right out of my brain. And there you go. Is this going to replace my bass guitar anytime soon? Well, probably not. But you know what? In a pinch, when you want a bass sound and you don't have a bass guitar, this is definitely a viable method to use, especially if you're using the bass amp. If you're dropping the treble and pumping up the bass on the EQ, you can get a pretty bassy sound out of a regular guitar. I hope you found this a little bit interesting and enjoyable. If you'd like to comment or have any feedback or questions for me, you can leave those down in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next video. Hey, thanks for sticking around. If you would like to check out some more videos here on the channel, we've got 2 linked right down there below. You can also subscribe by clicking on the Studio Live Today icon in the top right corner, or you can head on over to studiolivetoday.com for even more audio goodness.